Welcome to Decoding the Conflict Mindset. I'm Dr. Debra Dupree, the Mindset Mediator. And my goal in hosting this podcast, which is now in season 5, is to influence the minds of people worldwide in all walks of life in terms of how we deal with, how we look at, and what we do with conflict. I like to emphasize that conflict in and of itself is not a bad thing. It really is how we manage it. And so it's up to us to make a difference in how we manage it and therefore influence the lives around us. I am so excited about today's program because we have back with us the Western Justice Center with its Executive Director, Elissa Barrett. Why is that so important? Well, 2 years ago, Sean Gatlin, her colleague, appeared on a show called Conflict in Schools, and it was the most popular podcast of the entire season. And so I wanted Elissa and Western Justice Center to come back because things have changed. A lot has happened. And so our world looks very different even than it did 2 years ago. And she's here to talk about the accomplishments, the difference they've made in the lives of some 25,000 students in the greater Los Angeles area, and which happens to be the largest school district in all of the United States. And to also share a vision of where she sees it going. It's pretty remarkable. 25,000 lives and the world of difference it's making. But then don't go away because Elissa will set us up, so to speak, and we're going to have Professor Rehana Jamal to join us. And Professor Jamal recently joined Western Justice Center a couple of years ago, making a shift from being a full-time immigration attorney, working on their training and development coordinator on curriculums in schools, maker-school relationships, but she's also designed and teaches a class at Strauss Institute at Pepperdine, very renowned for being a leader in dispute resolution alternatives. 2 fantastic speakers, great ideas. You won't want to miss this episode because you will get ideas about the difference that you can make in your schools, in your communities, and in the lives of our future leaders. So please join us. There's time to still reach out and let other people know about today's episode, but we can't wait to have you learn and listen to both Elissa and Professor Jamal. Thank you. Here we are again for another episode of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. And I'm so delighted to have back with me Elissa Barrett, Executive Director at the Western Justice Center. Thank you for being here, Elissa.
Thank you, Deborah. It's such an honor to be on Decoding the Conflict Mindset once again.
Thank you. Yes. And as you might recall, your associate, Sean Gatlin, was on our program 2 years ago. And I've shared with each of you that episode, Conflict in the Schools, was actually the most watched episode in that particular year. So kudos to you and our interest in this topic, which is why I wanted to have you back again.
Thank you. Yeah, I can appreciate. I think we're all in a moment where we're seeing conflict at seemingly almost every level of our society. And certainly, interestingly, with the LA County Human Relations Commission recently reporting that 10% of all hate incidents are happening in K through 12 education, our schools are not exempt from that pattern.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's really starting early then, right? Oh, okay. So
let's start early in either direction, a positive one.
We'd like to mitigate it across all generations, right?
Exactly right.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Well, that's my goal, is to influence millions of minds to look at conflict differently and have some healthy approaches on how to resolve it. Yep. Yeah. Okay. What I'd like to know first, Elissa, is just give a brief overview of the Western Justice Center. And I know that you are very active, very busy, and some research has just been completed, and you're going to give us a little preview to some of the findings as you understand them. So give us an overview of Western Justice Center.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah. The Western Justice Center was formed in the late 1980s by a group of judges from the Ninth Circuit, U.S. Court of Appeals, judges, other judges, lawyers, and civic leaders. They really wanted to expand the use of alternative dispute resolution in and beyond the courts. So our first couple of decades were actually really focused on integrating the use of ADR in the federal courts. And that was a lot of our early work. And then we began to really look at how can this be used beyond the courts. We're using it in the court system because so much has happened that the level of litigation is bottlenecked in the court system. And we need these pressure valve releases of ADR. But what if we could actually teach people some of these skills earlier in their lives or before they got into court. And perhaps when they came into a situation involving conflict, they don't necessarily need to end up in the litigation process. Really, over the last 20 years, we have then been building out our work in what we call conflict resolution education. And what we like to say is the school communities we work with are experts in everything about how education is unfolding in that community. And we're experts on everything that's in this conflict resolution education toolbox. We are at present the largest conflict resolution education provider in Los Angeles County, which has the second largest K through 12 student population in the country. So I think that's really worth
Very
stating.
important statistics. Yes,
It's really worth
yes.
stating. And the work that we're doing right now and that we've really been focusing on over the last 5 years is we took a look at all of the advances that have been made in the last couple of decades around research into the consequences of overuse of traditional punitive discipline as the method for addressing behavioral issues and conflict in a K through 12 setting, looking at what does the data tell us about who's being affected more than others, and also looking at actually how it doesn't help with the basic ABCs of education. It doesn't promote attendance. It doesn't promote a sense of trust and belonging. It doesn't promote an excitement about the learning process or an empowerment, and it doesn't address the underlying needs of students that are often getting expressed through their behavior. Like you and I both know, none of us are perfect, and a lot of times our emotions come out sideways. So looking at sort of the data and then looking at a lot of the scaffolding of advances in the legislative infrastructure around alternatives to punitive discipline, we really asked ourselves as an organization, policy is good and research is good, but culture on the ground of a school campus eats policy and research for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so who's going to do the work of not coming in a shaming or blaming way to a school system, but it's going to come in and say, hey, we have these tools. We think they're very effective, and we'd like to try to work with you K through 12, the youngest student to the oldest student. We'd like to work with you, also empowering and supporting the adults in your school community. Everyone's from school board members, district-wide staff, administrators, classroom teachers, counselors, nurses, librarians, cafeteria staff, security guards. We'd like to involve everyone in developing a set of practical skills to navigate conflict differently than the way that we're navigating it right now.
Okay.
And we will help you not only gain facility with these skills, but we'll be with you side by side, year in and year out, to work out the plan for implementation and then to evaluate our progress as we go along. And as we were rolling this out, California Governor Gavin Newsom was also rolling out the California Community Schools Partnership Program grants, which gave public schools and affiliated charters in California the opportunity to partner up with nonprofit organizations and add their expertise to the educational journey of that district. And so we started with one district, Azusa Unified. They are our cornerstone district. We are so fortunate to work with them. They are fully bought in. We're now in year 6 of our partnership with them. They have successfully integrated conflict resolution education K through 12. The entire district stops every month and everyone does a community building circle. They're using social, emotionally grounded restorative practices as early as kindergarten. And then when we get up into that 4th and 5th grade, we're beginning to teach students to become peer mediators. And when we get up into high school, the students have created a student union that then is the leadership body to make sure that the older students are mentoring the middle school students, who are mentoring the elementary school students. And I'm very excited to say that this year we also have our first college credit classes in conflict resolution in the district. Including the Peer Mediation Club is a college credit elective in this district. So the research that I was alluding to, we're very fortunate to work with Dr. Dana Mitchell, who is a professor in the Educational Leadership, or EDD, program at Cal Poly Pomona. And she is just wrapping up 2 years of intensive research in and with Azusa Unified. The first year we called our peace building analysis. So this is looking at all of those proactive things that we're doing in the classroom and between periods to embed restorative practices in instructional strategy, in classroom management strategy, in curriculum delivery. And then year 2 is what we call the peacekeeping phase, which focuses on peer mediation. And so I'm still digesting the data, which we are hoping before the end of the year to actually put on our new section of our website, looking at our impact. But what we're seeing are some pretty clear trends. First, we're seeing a massive decline in chronic absenteeism. So chronic absenteeism is when students miss 10 or more days of school out of the 180 days that are in any one school year. At the beginning of our partnership, the chronic absenteeism rate in Azusa was 30%.
Wow.
It is now down to 6%, and in some grade levels lower than that.
Wow.
We are also seeing that overall, the percentage of students in the district who are moving from the D and F grade level up into the C, B, and A is up nearly 10%.
Great.
Use of the punitive discipline system is down by 60%. So suspensions are down 6-0. 6-0. And we did a study in the elementary school level of what happens when we integrate some of these techniques into delivery of curriculum for English language learning students. And what we found is in the classroom where we were using this strategy, those students scored at the top rating of the California Student Achievement Dashboard, which is the greens and the blues. And the schools that hadn't yet integrated those strategies were down in the orange. So there's a really significant difference. That's really what kind of came away from that peace building phase. And then from the peacekeeping phase, it's been really amazing. Dr. Mitchell and her team did intensive interviews with students who were serving as peer mediators and with the disputants and with the folks in the school system who deal with discipline and behavior. And they had 39 instances of students mediating conflict incidents that had included verbal and physical violence. So these were incidents where students might normally have been suspended, but they were given the option to go to mediation. 90% of those students stopped falling into that pattern of conflict and physical violence after the mediation. So this research really mirrors the bulk of the academic discourse in this area and reaffirms how important this work is. And here's the thing that's really important. Students feel empowered. They feel seen. They feel that they can practice empathetic, inclusive self-governance, which is the cornerstone of any democracy. And when there are issues of disagreement around politics, race, ethnicity, gender, all of these things, the students are able to talk it out. And that doesn't mean that they convince each other of their views, but they're able to decide, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. I don't know that I still totally
Yeah.
agree with you, but I think we can coexist and be in community with one another, even if we have different views, which I think is a lesson everyone in the United States of America should be paying attention to right now.
Absolutely. And so what I'm hearing, just refresh me if I capture this incorrectly, but when you incorporated these peer mediation strategies into ESL programs, you actually saw an increased performance,
Academically.
right? Yeah.
Because if you had a chance to sit down and talk about who you are as a whole person and be real about what's happening when you show up to class, I'll give you one example. We have a group of students in another one of the districts, and I want to talk about the other districts too, where we're working with kids in an opportunity program. And these are kids that have families that are experiencing homelessness. They may have a family member who's involved in the carceral system or is struggling with drugs or alcohol. There's a lot going on for these kids. And there was some really heavy conflict going on. And they were able to sit and have a community building circle and be in dialogue. And what came up was that they were hungry. They were hungry.
Yeah.
Because they had food insecurity in their families. And they got a chance to talk about what are their favorite foods. And they learned in that circle that they didn't know that pancakes could be made and didn't just come frozen out of a box. And so the teachers decided to have an activity where they got to learn how to make pancakes together. Now that sounds like, if you come from a privileged background, it's like, why is that a big deal? But the fact that these young people think about all of the pain and the shame and the stress that's going on in that family and how that may be coming out sideways on those kids, and all kinds of ways that they could be acting out in the educational setting, that punitive discipline would never have gotten these kids to have such an honest conversation and then feel like, I now can actually say my truth and have people hear me, adults. I can hear adults hear me, and then I can be empowered as a leader to then help other students. And that's really a virtuous circle of empowerment.
Yes, I mean, that just sounds fascinating. And that's even with people who have a more stable background, who aren't dealing with food insecurities, have a challenge in how they manage their emotions and the conflict it can create. And so to think that where we do have people who are underserved in terms of adequate meals and sleep, if we're not taking care of those basics, then the ability to self-manage really erodes significantly. And then not to mention the environment that may be challenging and leaving students ill-equipped to actually put all that together. So really, I mean, it's really touching in many ways about all the different creative aspects that Western Justice Center has been approaching this. Fascinating.
Yeah, if you think about it, no one organization can do anything, but because we're in the context of this community schools initiative approach, counselor who might have been spending their time breaking up conflicts now has their time freed up to learn of a student who's at risk and maybe be able to set their family up with resources to address some of those basic necessities they are not getting access to. And also, I think what's fascinating to me also with the older students, middle school and high school, is the complexity of conflict that they're ready to navigate. You know, we're now working with 4 districts total. We have district-wide initiatives in Azusa Unified, Pasadena Unified, both of those are K through 12s, and El Monte City School District, which is a TK through 8. And we're just starting an exploratory initiative with Hacienda La Puente Unified School District.
Oh, wow.
And then we have a partnership with Helpline Youth Counseling, and they run wellness centers called Dream Resource Centers in Inglewood, Norwalk, Cerritos, and La Puente. And so we also help support those organizations using a train the trainer model. And so all together, we're working at an embedded level with 40 schools right now with a total student population of more than 25,000 young people.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So already making an impact from K through 12 on 25,000 lives. That's remarkable and incredible, and particularly when we consider the environment of Los Angeles, very diverse, lots of challenges,
Yeah.
certainly historical perspectives, and then certainly I know that you're working closely in some of the areas that were majorly impacted by the fires, and so that even exacerbated the situation earlier this year.
Yeah. We had already been about a year and a half into our partnership with Pasadena Unified, which we have a long-term relationship with. And our headquarters, I should say, is based in Pasadena. We actually run a historic 4-building campus for nonprofits next to the Ninth Circuit. We have 20 nonprofits that have office space on campus. And then we probably have 50, 60, 70 other organizations in our main building, the Maxwell House, every year. And we've been waiving all of our fees for use of our event space at the Maxwell House to those doing fire recovery work. It's been actually felt very gratifying to link our educational work and our campus work together. But we were about a year and a half into our partnership with PUSD when the fires happened this January. And it's really difficult to describe the level of decimation. I can send you, there's a map in Northwest Pasadena, West Altadena, where most of the damage occurred. And you're looking at this map and there's like all of these red dots, and each red dot is a home.
Wow.
And one of the structures that was lost was Elliott Arts Magnet. And so the district made a decision to co-locate Elliott and McKinley. And we were working at that stage mostly with the high schools, but the two principals, Dr. Tolliver and Miss McKenzie, contacted us and they said, we have a lot of staff that have lost their homes, a lot of kids. There's a lot of grief and there's a lot of anger. And there's already a lot of conflict, and we would like to partner with you to set a different tone. And they really leaned into this work. We did a lot of resilience circles, a lot of grief circles, and students who had lost everything volunteered to be peer mediators. And many of them let us know, I have so little that I can control in my life right now, but I can control if I decide to be of service to other people my age. And this is how I've decided to do that. This is one of the ways I'm deciding to do that. That's really been a very deeply emotional and humbling journey for us to be on with them. And the week before the district reopened, we were part of a gathering of all 900 staff in the district, and also had a chance to pull everyone together for some small discussions about what they were experiencing, because a best practice in approaching trauma is with children is you actually have to take care of the adults first. You know, that thing they say when you're in the airplane, if you have dependents, put the oxygen mask on yourself. And I think we need to remember the enormous strain that our educators are under with the pandemic, and now here are the fires, and given the composition of the public school student population in California, the ICE rates, and whatever your view on any of these issues is, you can't argue about the impact that it has on people. And so that's where we focus, is on that support and partnership.
Great. And I'm so glad to hear, because the effects of trauma, just like not being able to get enough food, is real. I know our definition and approach to trauma has changed greatly as we've learned more about it and how we are impacted. So that is really wonderful to hear, that it's not just about the classroom, it's actually the environment, the community that you're helping rebuild, not just physically, but rebuild emotionally and spiritually.
We don't leave our lives outside when we enter a classroom, whether we're an adult or a child. We bring our full self into that space. And so I think if we can create a safe, inclusive learning environment, then we don't require people to bifurcate themselves. And they can just be fully human, which that is an important lesson to give to the next generation. We don't have it all together as adults. We don't have all the answers, but we have tools, and we can talk about things, and we can be honest, and we can face challenges and conflicts head on in a way that allows us to learn and grow and heal and support each other.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's just amazing. And Elissa, where does Western Justice Center see it going forward? And I'm excited to bring in our surprise guest,
Yes.
Professor Jamal, and I know she's going to tell us some about her in-depth work as a former immigration attorney and now specialist in restorative practices. But how does that fit into? I know she's working with the Justice Center now.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
I'm just gonna do a little praise song on Rehana Jamal, who our staff is so incredible. I think when we first started on our current strategic plan, we had 4 or 5 people on staff. We're almost at 20 now. And Professor Jamal joined our team 2 years ago. She's one that's been working with the Dream Resource Centers, and now she's going to be our manager of curriculum, training and curriculum development. And we're in strategic planning again, so we haven't made any big decisions. But I think we're looking at, right now, we have just this very in-depth model of partnering with folks. And so what we're thinking about is what's a multi-tiered structure that we can develop by documenting and packaging what we've learned in partnership with these incredible educational leaders and students. We call it our roadmap to resilience. And so we're working on, I don't know what form it's going to take, but our hope is that we're going to be able to continue to work in a deep embedded relationship with a certain number of districts. And that's really the collaborative laboratory of learning. And we like to say we don't do for, we do with. And I think we learn from and we learn with, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot of schools and it's a lot of students and it's a lot of learning. And so I think that's one of the things that we're really looking at. We have a website, schooltools.info, that was built in 2017 and 2018. And the tech and the content, I think, are needing refurbishing. So that's one of the things we're looking at. We've also been talking with a number of universities about developing a college certificate program, particularly at the community college level, that students can get open college credit starting in high school in conflict resolution, mediation, and restorative justice. I think creating that academic opportunity and incentive, I think our generational big goal is we would love to see conflict resolution education be a core component of how we do education in the state of California, and have that be something that we can share with other states and other parts of the world, even as we sit with humility, knowing that we can't think of everything. Imagine if part of a teacher certification training program or a school counselor training program or a principals and administrators graduate degree included all of the training that we have to do once everyone's already in the school system. So I think we have these very ambitious ideas because we see the level of pain and conflict and division in our society. And we believe quite passionately that this work is an antidote to those divisions. And so we want to try to expand the scale of our impact. And we're still trying to figure out what's the slice of that we're going to try to peel off in the next 3 to 5 years. But we're so grateful. And I just have to say a nod to our volunteers. We have a youth peace building summit every year called the Peer Mediation Invitational. We had our 20th annual this year, and it's grown from 150 to 300 to nearly 550 participants this year, including over 100 professionals who serve as mediation mentors and come in and provide live coaching support and share their experience with young people. And many of those mentors have also gone into the schools with us. And so I think about what the possibilities are of really harnessing the intelligence and emotional insights and public service energy of our field to that purpose. So I think that's in the stars as well.
Great. Again, the work of Western Justice Center, and you mentioned earlier kids managing conflict kinds of programs. I get really excited just hearing and learning about them, and imagine a world of future leaders who actually have conflict resolution skills already under their belt.
I mean, like really, I think it's an important thing. Think about how government might function if the people who were in elected office had been peer mediators when they were kids. How does a company run? How does a school system run? How does a family function? All of these things, I think we call it the ripple effect, and we're
Yeah.
hoping to send those waves out far and wide.
That's great. That's great. Elissa, I thank you so much for your time. For all of our listeners and viewers, don't go away. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back with our guest speaker, Professor Rehana Jamal. So, Elissa, thank you for your wonderful work and contribution. I love your energy, and clearly your leadership and vision, I know, is definitely driving the future of Western Justice Center. So, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Debra. I think that you are also carrying the gospel of conflict resolution far and wide as a teacher and a community leader and a practitioner. And we're very fortunate to be able to be together here in Southern California doing this work. We're very
Yes.
blessed.
Thank you. Yeah, we need colleagues like you and to make everything come together. And as they say, it takes a village.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll come right back. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us for a brief break, and we're back now. And so delighted to have Professor Rehana Jamal with us. Thank you for being here, Rehana.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. In our earlier segment with Elissa Barrett, Executive Director at the Western Justice Center, you said that you're now working at the Justice Center. And so tell us just a little bit about what you're doing and some of the special things that you're working on that, again, are really making a difference that amplifies some of the success rates that Elissa talked about.
Yeah, no, I think my path to Western Justice was a bit atypical. I'm currently running the training and curriculum development portion of the Western Justice Center, and I also am an adjunct professor and teach at Pepperdine Strauss Institute of Dispute Resolution. My background is as an immigration attorney, and I've been always in public interest law. And during COVID, I decided to go back to school and get my LLM in dispute resolution because I was pretty burnt out and I was hoping to pivot because my background is in psychology and I wanted to get back to psychology. So I did my LLM at Pepperdine and I had the chance to work with a lot of amazing professors, including Bill Eddy. And after I finished my LLM, I spent some time working with the High Conflict Institute, Megan Hunter and Bill Eddy, and I got to co-write a book with Bill Eddy focusing on BIF, which is one of the conflict resolution tools that the High Conflict Institute focuses a lot on. It stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And we wrote that book specifically for law offices and lawyers. Then
Great.
I was connected with the Western Justice Center, specifically with the executive director, Elissa Barrett, and we had an amazing dynamic conversation. And I knew after that I had to work with the Western Justice Center because it really brought together my interest of public interest, working within community, and conflict resolution. So now I run training and development. I also teach a class at Pepperdine Law School that focuses on bringing Western justice and restorative practices into the law school and give a more holistic understanding of what conflict resolution is.
Great. And my understanding is that you designed this course actually.
Yes, so this course is the brainchild of Shaffin Roberts at Pepperdine Law School and Elissa Barrett. They had been thinking about this course for a very long time, and I ended up being the perfect person to bring it all together and design this course. And we taught our first class last fall, 2024, and now hopefully the tradition will continue. Every fall we will be teaching the seminar at Pepperdine.
Wonderful, wonderful. What prompted you to design this course? What need did you see or feel was being unmet?
Yeah, the LLM program at Pepperdine at the Strauss Institute is amazing. I learned the basis of everything that I know about mediation, arbitration, and conflict resolution there. A gap that was missing for me was conflict resolution based in restorative practices, restorative justice, and community-based conflict resolution. And I was able to gain a lot of skills at Pepperdine, but I was hoping to gain more skills in facilitation. So I designed a class that essentially filled all the gaps that I had wanted when I was at Pepperdine. And now this class is really rooted in community mediation, community conflict resolution, as well as teaching facilitation skills to students, because there's just so many instances in which you need to apply your conflict resolution skills outside of the mediation context. And how do you do that? So I'm hoping to bridge that gap.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's because, yeah, it's beyond just trying to help parties resolve conflict, but then also how you impact their extended lives. And just like Elissa was talking about earlier about some of the needs of students in conflict, when you go behind the surface, as I like to call it, and dive deeper, you can identify some of the traumas that they've had, some of the daily challenges that they have, that just simply don't make it functional to manage yourself when things happen and we get very eruptive behavior. Yeah. Say a little bit more about transformative, because I'm not sure all of our viewers and listeners may be quite clear on what is transformative practices and how that might differ from more traditional mediation practices.
Yeah, there's so many different I guess the definition, the phrase that we use more so is restorative justice, and there's so many different ways to define restorative justice. I was taught about restorative justice through the criminal justice system, and the way that criminal justice attorneys and practitioners define it is different than how we do. But really, the core of what our practice is about community. It's about relationships. It's about people, bringing people together, and also figuring out how to repair harm at a very deep level. And I think that is what makes our work unique, because a lot of our work is focused on peer mediation. So it's teaching students how to mediate other students. And the way we teach it is a traditional method of mediation, and we infuse our ideas of restorative practice, restorative justice, about really having the participants, whoever is in conflict, lead the process, as well as diving deeper into the root causes, because we believe that unless you get to the root cause of what the issue is, nothing can really be solved. And because we are working in an education setting, people are in community together for very long periods of time, potentially forever, because this is their community homes. And once a conflict is resolved, that's great. And how do we make sure that they can remain in community with one another and really feel embedded, and like relationships are able to be healed and harm is able to be addressed?
Wow. Yeah, so it really takes a lot deeper in really transforming the relationship that exists between people, not just two people, but the people around.
One of the key questions we ask for restorative questions in any restorative dialogue that we have, whether it's peer mediation or circles. And one of the key questions is who has been impacted and how. And even if
Mhm.
it's a conflict between two parties, this question is so important, because a conflict is never between two parties. It's impacting your sister, your brother, your friend, your parent, your teacher. And so we really think about the holistic understanding of who is part of this conflict, who has been harmed, and how do we make everyone involved whole.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really takes on a much more enriching aspect. It's always good to know that you can resolve conflict, but then again, when you really are making a difference in their communities of whatever that may look like, imagine it fosters a sense of inclusion and a sense of belonging in a greater way than what we might normally have done in regular mediation.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that our partnerships work is it's really first focused on building community before we teach adults and students the conflict resolution skills, because it's so much easier to resolve conflict, to engage in mediation once you are in community with others. You're much more willing and you're much more open to engaging in conflict resolution techniques. So we spend a lot of time when we first start working with schools building community and then teaching a lot of the skill-based work.
Okay. Okay. So it's networking first and then the skills building comes later.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. What you just said reminds me, I do a lot of workplace interventions. And so one of the things I talk about is how do people connect when they first get to work? Because if you don't connect, then that's where we can make assumptions. They must be mad at me. They didn't say good morning to me this morning, or they didn't smile. And so when we start the day that way, when problems do happen, then it's much more difficult to approach that person later on when you haven't made that connection. And so making those connections can be huge in helping pave the way to resolution of differences, whatever level that might be. And so how do you, I know that you're working in the schools, and so how do you approach to peer mediation? Elissa gave us a bunch of great stats in the earlier segment, but give us an example of how you've seen this put into place in the results of what you do.
Yeah, the stats are really important because we're in the process of collecting data to continue to show how this work works. But an example that I have, one of my favorite examples is one of the high schools that I work with. We would do circles within one of the community spaces pretty regularly,
Mhm.
almost every week. And it was the same group of students. And one of these students continued to show up in the space, continued to show up in the circle, but didn't say anything. For the first 5 circles, this student sat there and every time they would pass. By the 6th circle, the students started speaking, engaging in the process. By the 7th, 8th circle, they were essentially one of the more louder students and in a very positive way. And by the 10th circle, they were the student who was leading the circle. And
Wow.
it was such a beautiful example of how this work really does bring people in. Our work is all about bringing people into community rather than pushing people out. And it takes time. It takes time for students and for adults even to feel comfortable. But I think that was a beautiful example of how I got to see that in real time, that transition happen and see the work working for this student.
Yes. And not only great opportunities to foster leadership and skills building around facilitation and engaging in groups, but not to mention the own inner peace that someone develops from feeling accomplished, that I can actually navigate through this and feel part of things. I'm really impressed with the approach that you and Western Justice Center are embracing. Just one more thing, Rehana, is that where do you see the future of it? I know Lisa and I have been around a lot longer, and you've made that pivot, as you called it, from immigration law now into this area. And I know I do want to capsize on something because Elisa had talked about one of the schools, that there were 39 incidences that were mediated by students that involved actions, both verbal and physical aggression, that would normally have led to suspension. But in those mediation situations, there was actually a 90% improvement where students didn't return to their original behavior. So what do you see happening with what you're doing and where the center's going?
Yeah, I think that this work extends beyond just the education setting. We've seen students who learn these skills, who become peer mediators, who become circle keepers, and how they're able to use these skills in all areas of their life. And our goal is to keep teaching these skills to as many schools, to as many students as we can, because honestly, I do this work because these are the skills I wish I had when I was younger. And I know it affects students not just in the school environment, but their interpersonal relationships, their family relationships. And I think the
Mhm.
younger that we can teach students these skills, the more hope I have for our society.
Yeah, the humanity ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just delighted and I'm pleased. I've known Bill Eddy for many years. I took one of his early trainings way back. I don't want to say how far back, but he had just launched the New Ways for Families. And now I know he's expanded that to New Ways for Workplaces around conflict resolution. And he's a prolific author. So glad to hear about your opportunity. This is a great book in general, and I use it all the time with the people I'm working with. And then also to be able to design a class for Strauss. What a recognition for you.
Yeah, no, I've had so many amazing mentors and I've met everyone through Strauss, Bill Eddy, Elissa Barrett. Everyone has really just honed in and been like, these are your skills. This is what your interests are. Let's make it into a reality. So I'm very lucky to have amazing mentors.
Yeah, yeah. And as you reminded me, we met actually a year ago, I think it was, at the Loyola School of Law when we both attended the Employment Mediation Institute. So that was delightful oh, yes, we met. This is wonderful. It's a close circle of professionals who really dedicate themselves to this kind of work. So keep it up, and I look forward to seeing more from Professor Rehana Jamal. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful getting to speak with you.
Great. That's it, folks. Here we are, another episode of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. And today's two-part episode was all about what the Western Justice Center is doing in today's schools. Schools a couple of years ago was our hottest podcast. And so we're back again. And now we've got even more stats and evidence about the success and the impact that Elissa says you have on 25,000 students throughout Los Angeles, being the largest K through 12 school system in the country. So that's impressive right there. And let's keep it up and join forces. Real quickly, Professor Jamal, if people are interested in learning more, how do they reach out to you or Western Justice Center? Where can they go?
Yeah, they can go directly. Elissa and I love LinkedIn. So we are always on LinkedIn and we can share those with you. And also the Western Justice Center website has a lot of great information. We're in the process of updating it and continuing to update it. So you can find out a lot about us and our work there and how to connect with us as well.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for joining us today, and pass this on to the people you know in the school districts around your community. And maybe we can help this restorative practices flourish in many communities throughout our nation. Thank you. Farewell. Dr. Debra Dupree, the Mindset Mediator and your host of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Thank you. I hope that you found that two-part podcast episode to be as dynamic and eye-opening as I did. And I've known Elissa Barrett for a long time. I met Professor Jamal a year or so ago, and I had delightful conversations with each of them and with Elissa many times over the years. Incredible work that they're doing. And I want to encourage you to share this again with the school districts, your communities, where you may make a difference, have an impact on trying some of these more restorative approaches to individual schools and community-based building. Fantastic, phenomenal results happening. And so spread the word. Again, imagine a future world of leaders where they actually have conflict resolution skills. What a difference that would make. And coming up next will be our famed author, Bill Eddy. And Bill was referenced in this last episode because Professor Jamal has co-written a book, building on a book he's already had for a number of years, BIF, Brief, Informative, Friendly, and Fair. And Bill and Professor Jamal have collaborated on designing that book specifically for the legal industry. What can we learn? So mark your calendars, pay attention to when the notices are coming out, and please join us again for another episode of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. If you like what you hear, send a message, let us know how we're doing, what you like, and spread the word. Again, conflict in and of itself is not the bad thing, it's how we manage it. And what places like the Western Justice Center are doing is they're turning punitive into alternative ways of dealing with problem behavior. And that's exactly what the Western Justice Center Institute is all about. And I'm Bill Eddy with this High Conflict Institute. Again, we're all trying to make a difference. Please be with us on that journey. Thank you. Again, Dr. Debra Dupree, your host and founder of the Decoding the Conflict Mindset podcast. Come back and join us again.